Hello everyone, how you doing today? Thought I would show a couple things and a little bit of progress on that Martian base. A few things that happened over the weekend. Essentially, a lot of items were put to the workshop. So this is out on public now, as well as this point defense turret, and then of course these two items over here, joint project with T-Rex 82. So all this stuff is out there. He made a really cool video too that kind of showcases the two items together flying around. So very cool stuff. As in some progress and some new stuff going on right now. Basically, I've got this base skinned more or less. I'll probably do some more final little detail stuff on the exterior before it's finished. You can kind of get an idea on what this is looking like now. I think with the color change and some of the other little things I was working on, I think it does have a bit more of an industrial look to it now than what it did, especially in white. So I was going for that in the first place. I didn't want this to look like a luxury base necessarily. It's functional, yes, but luxury, not really. But you can kind of see how this is coming out. I did move this. I did change this front or this particular side some, in which this row got moved up a full block row, so it no longer interferes with the door. It used to slice right across there, essentially. Um, and with its landing locations on there, you can actually land quite a bit on this base. So I'm kind of happy about that. When I was doing these landing pads, I so totally wanted to be able to have the ability to do angled decals. Like essentially these lines here, I can do them in square boxes, but what I really wanted to do was have like some angled landing pads and have like nice little lines drawn around them and stuff like that. I thought that'd be really cool. But there are just no options. There's just no way to pull that off. The only thing I could think of is building like a angled row of blocks that kind of go over the top of the surface and paint those maybe a different color. But then they're going to interfere with landing, where you don't want raises and blocks and stuff like that on a landing pad, because it can mess with trying to like land things nicely. So I had to just go down and go square on it, even though these were kind of designed to be angles in the first place. But well, you got to do what you got to do. Um, as in the material selection on this, I did end up going with carbon substrate. I know there is kind of mixed reaction on should it be concrete or substrate, and there's some good points on the concrete. Um, and that would have been my preferred material to actually build this with. But I went with substrate because for something this size, I hate working with concrete. I do. It has to do with the textures, and uh, and I hate having to like do every block a different material to try to get some textures that I want and in certain places. But what really harms things the most, and you can kind of see what I did over on this side here, is the only flat texture available for concrete is, well, essentially this carpet. Um, well, this isn't concrete here, but so this texture here is what is really my only option to do the bulk of the creation in. All these angled walls and things that don't texture with anything else. Right now, here's my base metals, these two guys here, and in the concrete doesn't offer those, which really kind of throws you in a bind. And then you got to just do this instead. It's not like the end of the world. It's not horrible, but it would not have looked as good in the end if I would have done it in concrete, and that's kind of why. And I didn't want to try to play the games like I did on some past bases, which made them so annoying to build. Like even the waypoint hangar, that was concrete with some other blocks that were other stuff. Just a nightmare to build it. Took far longer than I wanted it to. I had to like keep on swapping out certain blocks depending on what textures I wanted in certain places at certain points in time in the build, and then flipping back and forth between different texture palettes constantly. It just, I didn't like it, and I was trying like a son of a gun to avoid doing that same thing with the Martians, and that's why I kind of did this in Substrate as well. So I'd have the textures I wanted for the race available to me. Now, it was brought up in a dev Q&A meeting, or the last video I seen on that in the future there may be a way, like a custom texture palette. In other words, you could pick and choose from a big list of textures on which ones you actually want on a specific creation. That would solve all these issues. It really would. I've been, with the amount of different materials and the fact that they all have their different texture palettes with them. For instance, like wood is different than concrete, but steel is different than concrete. And then there's also cargo extensions have a different set of textures that they use. And when I'm doing these things, I keep on getting annoyed. It's like, I want to just texture something with a particular texture I had in mind for it, and then it's like, oh, I can't because this is wood, or this is concrete, or this is an extension, or just a lot of things like that. And it's just like, it makes it just takes longer to build and texture and skin stuff that way, and especially if you got to replace blocks constantly in the process to do it. I mean, so I didn't want to do that, and that's why I just went with Substrate on this. But you know, for the people that you know said concrete, you have very valid reasons for that, and I get it, and it makes a lot of sense. But as a designer standpoint, it sucks. It sucks, and I just didn't want to do that to this race. I did it to a lot of the human buildings. Put in the concrete. Every time I thought they didn't look as good as they should have looked, and it was because I was using the concrete. But that's basically it. Now with the kriel'ed on their base, I didn't mind the concrete because there's actually some oddball textures I managed to get to work with that. But then of course I can't use those textures on other kriel'ed items like CVs or SVs. So that kind of was throwing me kind of for a loop there too. It's like, how do you do a race and have everything right across the board if you're doing different kinds of materials that have different texture sets available for them, which is kind of troubling. So I really do hope this custom texture palette does come into play in the future. That would really be cool. One other thing I just wanted to show too, and this has to do with textures. I've seen it brought up by other people as well, but I've been really kind of pointing out some issues with a lot of the textures that I've got that I just never used for the reason that you're seeing right now. Like a couple of these on here in black, you have this white line issue. Like for instance, I don't want white lines in the textures, especially when I want this area to be dark. And from a distance, that can look really bad. In fact, I noticed something even on the Tashi. A couple textures that I do use frequently. Oh, I kind of screwed it up on that side. Let me get to this side. Like this one, this vent here. Now it's weird that how it's placed in the first place, and I had to deal with this weird angled surface and things don't line up right. But it doesn't look that bad close up. But what I hate is when I back away, and I've looked at this several times, and you see it now, and it looks like it's like a solid white block, like I didn't color that block right. And that is the problem I have with the white inside of textures, and there's so many textures that are the same way as that. I mean, these are some examples over here too. But there's a lot of them in the palette that just every time I use them, I get the same problem. And there's some textures I would really like to use too. Like I do like this group of textures here, or this, for a primary area. And I would like to use these more often, and I used to. But again, it's the white lines that are stopping me from doing it. Now, back when I built things in gray, typically, it wasn't a problem because those white lines fade in quite well with the gray and doesn't look too bad at all. But when you do anything of these darker colors, it's kind of a nightmare, and I just can't use them for that reason. It would just look terrible. And in fact, I kind of wanted to use this texture on some kriel stuff, and there's a couple other textures that might have worked out into the theme, but not with the white lines. It does not work. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up. Let's see, what else did I do here? Well, talking to Crazy Z, I said I wanted to kriel up his villain. Well, I krieled up his villain, so there you go. It's a kriel villain. This was just for fun. I'm not like putting this out to the workshop or anything. I just wanted to just to do it, to say I did it. Ha ha. There you go, Crazy Z. It's krieled. Author Shadow Crow 86 wanted me to take a look at a couple of his satellite defense points. Now, I don't have these up in space right now where they should be, but I just want to take a look at the general designs of these and whatnot. There's two different ones. This one I would assume is a little bit lower version, and this one's the bigger, stronger version. Both very cool. Both have like top and bottom turrets and things like that. One thing when looking at this, and this is a question I really don't have an answer for, and I would have to test, I guess, but if someone just happens to know, it would be really cool. For instance, what I was thinking, now granted, this is in space, right? So there's no gravity, so things don't collapse. What happens if this is defending something and this block here gets destroyed? Would that affect this at all? Would it disconnect everything that's attached to that block from the bottom? Essentially like breaking it off from the main structure? Or would it just kind of be like Minecraft, when you're chopping down a tree, you can take down the base and it just floats there and everything is hunky-dory? I'm just curious if anybody happens to know the answer on that one. As in, this version here, this is combat steel, so this one is quite a bit tougher, I would say, overall. And also has a shield in there. Does this one have a shield? I don't believe this one does have a shield. No. Okay, so yeah, that is the model up. But anyway, you can take a look at both these creations on Shadow Crow 86's workshop, Satellite MK3, and why in the heck? Well, I know this is the Odin. Why in the heck won't it? That's weird. Have you noticed this too? Sometimes some of the things I place, it'll show me their names, and other things I place, it doesn't show. Oh, it does. I'm just a moron. Why in the heck is it way up there? Maybe that's the issue I've got. Why is this one perched there and this one's like right above it? And I don't know. But anyway, this one is the Odin defense satellite. A couple other things. Moving on to the not forgotten about kriel. I do want to get going on this project again. I was just doing some tests here in a survival environment to figure out, can this work with the new flight model? I was a little scared. Right now, I cut the RCS on it, and it's at 6 million CPU, how it sits without the interior, which is well in range of me being able to complete the ship. And again, 0 RCS. The RCSs are just so expensive. Like what are these things costing right now? It's not going to tell me that way. I can't see that. Oh, there it is. And 1.25 million. I guess the point is not to use RCSs. That's just weird, though. I mean, I get it. I get it that the with the different CPU tiers and things like that. But you know, right now, talking to some authors, when you're building stuff, it's very hard to tune a ship to get it to fly the way you would want it to fly, or the way you had envisioned it to fly. It's dependent on where your thrusters are, and of course if you have RCS or not. And the particular model, like a good example here. Let me get back to this stuff over here real quick. Like I've been playing with different thrust layouts on different models. Like this one here has the idea of your thrusters are in the far or close to the far corners of the craft, and that does work. It makes it steer decently without the use of RCS. But my fear from that was, are we going to now have to build efficiently and not use RCS so we can build more stuff into a ship at a particular tier? Are we going to have to now build squarish looking things all the time to get the thrusters positioned out far enough from it to make it steer without the use of RCS? And again, also I believe even on Crazy Z's villain here, same idea was done. He had to like do maybe some design choices he didn't want to do so he could get thrusters out here, so it would fly and not need RCS. And I worry about that too, because it's like, well, it's kind of neat in a way that it works that way, but then again, what if you want to do something that doesn't follow that look? You know, if you didn't want like a rectangle looking ship, or the thruster placements to be rectangular, like this thing, totally oddball on that. Would this ship fly okay? I don't know. I haven't converted this one over yet, but I'll have to figure it out. Right now, it has RCS in it in a lot of them, so this thing is completely killing the upper limits of CPU tier. Of course, if I remove the RCS, though, it might do just fine, and I could probably keep this as a tier 4 SV. I haven't been updating my existing stuff, at least to the workshop. I've done tests, but I haven't like redone any of the blueprints yet. I found that things have been in flux quite a bit yet, even now. Like the other day, right when I was about ready to release the Condor here, I flew it around, and all of a sudden it was really slow at turning. It was like, wait a minute. The day before, it was pretty speedy at turning, especially not loaded. But now it's like I'm sitting there having to crank on the mouse like 15 mouse swipes to get it to turn, 15 degrees. And it was really sucking, and I don't know. But it changed, and I noticed on the patch again right after that it's again flying nice and good the way it should. I ended up adding RCS in this as well too, because I was really nervous right about the time when I was going to release it that, oh no, it no longer flies worth the crap. So I'm a little skeptical on updating any of my existing blueprints yet until I know everything is like settled in final at this time. New stuff, that's cool. I've been getting some new stuff out, but the older stuff, not yet. Soon. Another project I want to build in the near future too, and is a space carrier. Maybe not just space, so I haven't made my mind up on that one yet. Basically, I want to build a carrier platform type of ship, a little bit unique from all the ships I've built so far, that's designed to transport CVs and SVs. Um, and my big debate on it right now is, should I design it so it could land on a planet, or should it remain in space? Because when you're moving around other CVs, those CVs could go to the planet, or you could, use SVs to even move HVs down to the planet. So, do you think on a large, like, think of like a flat bed kind of truck that kind of looks a little bit like a carrier. um, and that's kind of the idea of what I wanted to do, but I wanted to have like this immense amount of docking space for big, medium to small size CVs that can park on this thing. So it's going to be pretty good in physical size. As in size class, I did want to keep it limited to not going past 10 on it, but I wouldn't doubt that it does hit 10. So just curious on that. Should it land on the ground, or would it be cool just to be a space-based CV fleet mover type of ship? And let's see, is there anything else? Oh yeah, last thing. I was taking a look at the biggest creation I've made to date, the kriel'ed war carrier, size class 19, pretty crazy ship, lots of guns, lots of everything pretty much. I wanted to see how it would respond to current flight model and CPU. So what I did is I did my normal thing. I removed all the RCS. Uh-oh, I'm out of fuel. And I actually removed 2 of the 6 constructors it has in it, but I didn't do anything else besides add the 4 tier 4 CPU blocks. And I'm at 14 million on CPU on this one. So this one's a little rough. Hold on a second. Let me grab something. I just want to get some fuel here. Alright, so we are gassed up. Flying this without any RCS and with the lower numbers at, well, I think it was 80, what was that? Oh, hold on, another mistake here. Let me get out of the seat a minute, see if this actually does work. It didn't this time. It's weird. I noticed that the mode changes in between. When you're in a survival game and you use the console command CM, it'll put you in creative mode, or it's like a toggle back and forth in between creative mode and non. When I tested this before, when I was not in creative mode, at this number here, I believe it came to 86 or 87% efficiency. But after the fact, like currently, even though was in survival, switching it back on the fly doesn't seem to actually work, so it's not telling you the CPU values or what it's impacting the ship on. It just says basically not available. So that is one thing I've kind of found a little side effect with doing some of the stuff in survival, is that switch doesn't seem to switch this stuff. And the only way I can get this to work right, let me just do that real quick, is if I exit out and fire the game up again. And then the numbers should look different. Not a big deal, just one of those things. Let's see. Oh, no. There we go. Before I die. Okay, so now if I take a look at the ship, now it's at 87% efficiency. So at 87% efficiency, and admittedly, I don't have much more I can remove from this ship. maybe some thrusters, but I kind of need what's there. This thing's big. It's really heavy. It can carry a fair amount of storage. Don't really want to remove any thrusters. Didn't really want to remove the 2 constructors that I took out either, but in the end, with CPU at tier 4 legit at 87% efficiency and no RCS, it does actually fly pretty good. I don't know how this is impacting fuel usage. Now this thing totally is not a fuel efficient ship. Oh, something's shooting at me and I don't have any guns. Well, there's that. Anyway, this can work at tier 4 CPU, but it's going to be over by quite a bit. And there's not really much I'm willing to do about that. Because the last thing in the world I'd want to do, it may have maybe too much thrust in certain directions. Like, does it really need 4 of these big front thrusters here? Probably not. But God, I would hate to get rid of them or replace them with smaller ones and just make the whole thing look bad. These were specifically designed to use this size thruster, and going down to the next 2x2 models just isn't going to work. But I will update this ship once I feel things are safe to update on the workshop. Right now, I don't feel it's safe yet, and I'm not putting in like updating existing blueprints to use the new CPU and flight models at this time. I'm still holding off because there's just too many changes taking place yet, and I want it to be more finalized because I would hate to put the time and effort in doing that to a bunch of creations and then suddenly something changes again and then now they're not right again. So I'd rather just see and wait till they're all done. That's basically it. So anyway, if you have any questions about anything, let me know. You know, there's one last thing too, and it had to do with our color palettes currently working correctly. Oh. Like if you were to take a color palette and copy it over to another creation, is it bringing it in correctly? And that's something I'm going to try here real quick. So on this ship, I am going. Okay, so here's the stock kriel'ed palette, and it really a lot of these colors it doesn't use at all. It's just pretty much this row and over here. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it. And a way to do that is you make sure you want to click on the okay. When you have this one selected here, you hold down Shift and then click on the furthest one out here. Or not. All right. Well, it did do it, so it selected them all. Oh. I tell you what, I'll hold this off for another day. I'm getting some weird little things happening here, and I'm not sure what I might have done to trigger that, but it seems to be kind of weird. Maybe it is broken. It's just not supposed to close that right away. Well, here. I'm going to basically copy that. I'm going to go over to this creation, and then we'll hit paste. Okay, so that actually did work. I actually did take the color palette and set it there. So it's working. It's just it's kind of weird because it's like when I'm trying to click on stuff, it's closing it instantly. Like I didn't want it to close. I was holding on the Shift key when I was doing that. I thought it was just going to select it, not close the menu down. And I think maybe that's where there might be a glitch, possibly. I don't know. Can't think of much else right now. But anyway, y'all have a good day. Hope you enjoyed this. See you later.